Welcome! The virtual event will begin shortly. Let's get to know the virtual event environment. At the bottom of your screen, you'll see a row of icons, each with a unique function. Icons vary from event to event, so you may see some or all of the icons covered in this video. This is the Restore icon. It will restore all of the windows to their original positions. The video and slides icons allow you to minimize each window and customize your screen. Click on the group chat icon to connect with other attendees. The Q&A icon is where you can ask questions to the speaker or ask for technical help. Just type your question into the box and submit. You'll see a brief confirmation message when you do. Click on the summary icon to read the event summary and on the speaker icon to learn more about the event speakers. When you click on the resources icon, you'll find additional information pertaining to the event. And last but not least, if real-time closed captioning is available, use this icon to follow along throughout the event. If you have technical difficulties, here are a few tips that can solve some of the most common issues. If you don't see the video or hear the audio, try refreshing your browser. If you can't hear the presenter, verify that your speakers are turned on and the volume is turned up. The platform works best when watching on a computer or laptop, not on a smartphone or tablet. If you have a weak internet connection, try connecting directly to your router with an Ethernet cable. And don't worry if you miss something, because you can view a recording of the event later. All attendees will receive a thank you email following the event with the information you need to view the recording on demand. Enjoy the event!
Good morning and welcome. Thanks for joining our Scam Jam webinar today. We are discussing life hacks that will help you protect your money today and into the new year. My name is Jay Hoppola. I'm with AARP here in Minnesota, and I'm joined on screen by my colleague, Lisa Gemtrude. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, Jay. Great to be here.
Yeah, thanks. So we have a long history working together, keeping you and everybody safe from financial fraud. Back before the pandemic, we did a lot of in-person programs all around the state of Minnesota. And for now, we're able to reach a lot of people with these webinars, and we do some phone calls to share this important information. So scammers, we know, are stealing billions of dollars from Americans every year, and the impact on the victims and their families can be financially and emotionally devastating, and this is especially true for older Americans. So at AARP, we created the Fraud Watch Network to empower consumers to spot and avoid these scams. And also, we provide support and guidance for victims and their families when the fraud happens. So in addition to sessions like this one today, you can find a lot of information online at aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork.
Thanks, Jay, and welcome everybody. Hi from the Better Business Bureau. We appreciate our longtime partnership with AARP and our ongoing scam jams. The Better Business Bureau is a community leader in scam prevention education. For over 100 years, we have helped buyers and sellers trust each other and help consumers making wise buying decisions. We also investigate unscrupulous business practices and then let the public know about what to avoid when they are doing transactions across the marketplace. BBB is constantly monitoring the trends and complaints that we receive from the public. And we also have a special tool. I'll show it to you later. It's called Scam Tracker that all of you are able to access. It's so important that we report scams and scam attempts. We just need to help each other avoid the scams. Jay and I could be talking about this every day and we wouldn't reach all the people that we want to reach with this information. So thanks all of you for listening because you can help us with the messages. BBB works regularly too with the media and law enforcement and other great partners like AARP so we can all push forward and elevate scam prevention education.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa, and it's good to be back with you in this partnership between our organizations. And like you said, it is a big, community effort between law enforcement and investigators and nonprofits like us. And we're joined today by an expert. His name is Todd Caso. He's the director of the Federal Trade Commission's Midwest region. He has decades of experience tracking all these financial crimes and enforcing consumer protections. So he'll be joining us in just a few minutes. But first, I'm going to share some important information with you. But Lisa, one more point from you before I do my part.
We just want everyone today to look at themselves as ambassadors of the scam prevention message, and that we want you to take one thing, hopefully, or maybe more, that you learned today and share with others.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. And also, we want to interact with you, everyone who's participating in the program here today. So you see the chat window on your screen. We really encourage you to put your questions and comments. I saw earlier folks were also entering where they live and where they're joining from, at least entering the city where you live. I think that's safe enough. It's not going to put you at any risk for identity theft. But yeah, we'll get to your questions throughout the program and definitely at the end. So let's get going here. So once again, my name's Jay, and I'm with AARP, and we run our Fraud Watch Network program. We take reports about scams from all over the country, and it's actually through our call center we get hundreds of these reports, over 100,000 of these reports every year, hundreds every week. So we really have a finger on the pulse of what kind of scams are being reported and what people are being faced with out there up to the minute. So what I'd like to do for you today is really set the stage and take a look at what is the environment that we're living in. I like to call it a perfect storm that really works in favor of the con artist, especially in the pandemic that we're dealing with. I want to talk about what the scam artists are targeting, what is it that they're trying to get from you, from their victims. And to give you a little spoiler, it goes beyond your money. There's other things that they might be trying to get from you beyond your money that can be harmful to you, and it's their goal. And then I will also, as we get started, talk about some basic online safety issues. So first of all, this perfect storm that we're dealing with in the pandemic, these are the conditions that the con artists have to work so hard in normal times to create. But in their favor, this pandemic has created a lot of these factors by itself. So the con artists don't even have to work so hard to create them. And the first of them is, for some people, a lot of fear. For all of us, definitely uncertainty. When we're doing things that we've never done before, like going online to find vaccines or dealing with the government to receive our economic impact payments, these are experiences we haven't had before. And so we're uncertain about how to proceed and what is real and what might be an imposter trying to target us and victimize us. So doing new things for the first time, that creates that condition that favors the con artist. In addition, people are more isolated. And so for older adults out there, we've seen on the news, people with mobility issues and challenges, and not to mention people who are more susceptible to coronavirus and could have a worse experience up to and including death as a result of contracting the virus. But we're all more isolated. I'm more isolated. Younger people who can't go to their school classrooms because of the virus and the pandemic, they're more isolated. So that's a condition that the con artists work really hard to create in normal times, and it has really fallen right into their lap since we're all more isolated. Not just that, but we're all more available. So there's this myth about older people being targeted and victimized by scams more than younger people, and that's not even true. So younger people and older people are all victimized and targeted at just about the same rate. But what I observe is that older people, many of whom are retired, just more available. And I'll tell you, even since I've been working from home during the pandemic, I seem to get more scam phone calls. I seem to get more scam emails and texts than I used to. But the only reason for that is that I'm available. if my phone rings and I'm sitting here at my desk, or even here, like if I'm during a meeting, I can just mute myself and answer the phone. So I'm more likely to answer the phone than, say, if I was sitting around a boardroom table with a bunch of my colleagues. I wouldn't answer my phone in that situation. Or certainly if I was driving, I wouldn't be answering the phone. But now that I'm more available, I tend to be paying attention to more of these scams, and that puts me at risk. If something really clicked with me, I might go down the path that the scammer wants me to go down. Another factor playing into the favor of these con artists is the anonymous technology that we're using. So today we're using this platform called Intrado Studio. I'll bet many of you have been on Zoom meetings or using other platforms. And that technology in itself is something that the con artists use in some of their scams. So some of you might have heard of a tech support scam where the victim or the target receives a phone call or maybe an email that says your computer has a virus and you need to work with the scammers, the imposters, to fix it. They might use a platform like Zoom and convince their target to share their screen through Zoom, and then by virtue of sharing their computer screen, they might be providing the scammer with their passwords or images of their bank account, for example. So this anonymous technology allows the con artists to operate with anonymity, so you can't trace them over the internet in that way when they might be stealing information or transferring funds. And then what we have is more money, cash in the economy. So there's no secret that the con artists are targeting Americans for the simple fact that people have more money in their bank accounts. And I'm not saying that everyone's wealthy or anything like that, but it's just a fact that checks were mailed to Americans and that money was there for the taking. So next, what I'd like to discuss is what they're after, and I hinted at this. Sure, if they can get their victim to send a shoebox of cash or go make a wire transfer or go down to the grocery store or the drugstore and buy a gift card, they'll take it. They will take that, but that's not the only thing they might be after from their victims. In addition, they want to steal your personal information, and that's what we would call identity theft. Generally, with your personal information, what they could do, if they had enough of it, such as your birth date, your social security number, your address, for example, they could open up an account and access credit in your name. So generally, that's the issue with identity theft. But it's not just that. They also want access to your devices. So if they could take over your device, your computer, your laptop, your smartphone, if they could control your device from a distance from where they are, they could get into your files. They could steal your information. They could impersonate you. They could monitor your activity if they had access to your device. They also want access to your account. So different from controlling your device would be the ability to log into your email account, the ability to log into your online accounts, your bank account, for example. And if they had that access and control, you can understand what they would do. If they had access to your bank account, they could transfer funds. If they had access to, say, your email account or your social media account, they could impersonate you and target other people who are listed as your contacts. And that's why, I'll discuss in a moment, having strong passwords for your accounts is really important. So not only that, but increasingly what we've been seeing is that con artists are recruiting well-meaning people, often through work-from-home type arrangements, to help them in their money laundering schemes. So people are responding to ads. Many people who are out of work or just because of the pandemic would sure love to work from home. They're responding to these advertisements to work from home, and that work from home job might be a scam in the first place. And it could be that once a person gets involved, what they're told is that their job is going to be to process these payments through their own bank account and to send the money on to the next place. And those payments in a lot of these cases are coming from other scam victims who have been instructed to send their money along. And then this network of other money mules, we call them, are sending the money from here to there, helping the con artists avoid being caught and making it really difficult for investigators to trace all of those transactions. And in the cases where the money mules who started off as scam victims kind of figure out that they're involved in something illegal, but they get to keep some of the money, those people are being prosecuted as well. So like I said, a few tips before we get to Mr. Caso, but staying safe online. We're going to cover a lot of this today because it's holiday shopping season, and all of us are doing more online than we used to. If you're like most people, I guess I shouldn't say every single person, but a good checklist to follow is right here on your screen. First and foremost, it's important to do your software updates. When on your smartphone you get an alert, it's time to put down the phone, plug it in for 15 minutes and do your software update. I know it's hard to put down your phone for a little while, but it's important to do those updates. And I get this question often is, how do people know if they see a pop-up window on their computer that says it's time to update your software? How do they know it's real or not? Well, every software system's a little bit different, so it's just important to take a little time and research what a legitimate software update notification looks like on your device, on your system, on your software, compared to what a fake one might look like if it's coming from the internet. So, believe it or not, there are fake websites out there that are designed to look like legitimate websites. I know my colleagues here are going to talk about this today, so I'm not going to go too far with it, but pop-up advertisements on the internet, some of them are fake, and it's important to know which ones you're dealing with. I mentioned earlier when it comes to protecting your online accounts that having strong passphrases is very important, and that's the case. So here's just an example, and my point is that it's not so much the random characters that you use in your password that is going to trick the con artist or keep your account safe, but instead it's the length of your password. It's simple mathematics, or some might say it's complicated mathematics, but the more digits and letters you have in your passphrase, it's an exponential amount of growth that makes it more difficult to be hacked. So, for example, if you only have 6 letters and numbers in your password, that's about 5 billion combinations that a computer program or someone would have to hack or predict in order to access your account. If you have 12 letters in your passphrase, then it's 5 billion times 5 billion. So 5 billion squared. So as you're out and about shopping for the holidays or just doing your business, say you're at the coffee shop, it's important that you are not doing personal business with your personal information when you're connected to public Wi-Fi. Someone else who's on that coffee shop Wi-Fi terminal, or say at the airport or anywhere where the Wi-Fi network is not password protected and other people are able to access that same network, you should not be doing any personal information, say entering your credit card number or even entering passwords for any of your online accounts. Now that's different than if you're connected to your satellite connection through your cellular service. That is encrypted. But when you're on that Wi-Fi network in a public place, even if they have a password at the coffee shop to get on the Wi-Fi, everyone has the same password and everyone has the same access, and you don't know those people. And then finally, when you're doing your business online, I encourage people to not be worried when you see that spam email come into your account. That is not dangerous to your computer. The way you can get a virus, the way you could have your accounts taken over, is when you download a file from that email. So be very cautious of the attachments to that email or any links that are within that email. The same goes for a text. I get scam texts that have links in them. Receiving the text is not dangerous, but if I click on that link, now I'm downloading a file to my device, and that file could have malware or a virus embedded in it. So those are my tips for you to stay safe online right now and into the new year. And we're about to turn it over to Todd Caso. He is the regional director with the Federal Trade Commission. So hello, Todd, and thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate the... Go ahead.
Yeah, just thanks for being here.
So I Okay, thanks, Jay. Really appreciate the BBB and AARP in inviting the Federal Trade Commission to take part in today's Scam Jam. So as Jay said earlier, I'm Todd Caso, and I'm the director of the FTC's Midwest Region office in Chicago. And my office in Chicago is one of 8 regional offices that the FTC has around the country, and we cover 11 states here in the Midwest, all the way from Kentucky to North and South Dakota, including the great state of Minnesota. So let me start with just a little bit of background about the Federal Trade Commission for those who may not be familiar with us. So we are the nation's consumer protection agency. We work to prevent unfair and deceptive acts and practices in the marketplace, and we do that both through law enforcement and through education. So on the law enforcement side, we sue companies that engage in unfair and deceptive practices, usually in federal court. And the relief we seek is we ask the court to order that the practices be stopped and that restitution be awarded to the victims. And last year, in fact, as you can see on the slide, we were able to return $403 million to people who lost money to companies and scams that the FTC had sued. Now, we only have civil, not criminal authority, so unfortunately we can't put fraudsters in jail, but we do work closely with the U.S. Department of Justice to get our civil fraud defendants prosecuted criminally. So education is also a big part of what the FTC does, including both for consumers and for businesses. And we have a lot of free material on our website, and I'll talk about some of it near the end of my presentation, that are available both in English and in Spanish. And these materials are all free. You can order bulk copies of 50 or more for free at ftc.gov/bulk order. So another thing that the FTC does is maintain the Consumer Sentinel Network complaint database. And this is a national database of consumer fraud and ID theft reports. And the database includes reports that are made directly to our agency, and then a number of other organizations contribute the complaints that they receive. So AARP Fraud Watch Network, for example, contributes complaints. So does the Better Business Bureau. So do many state attorneys general offices around the country. So the database is truly a national database, and it becomes a one-stop shop of fraud and ID theft reports that's accessible to law enforcers here in Minnesota and all across the U.S. So earlier this year, the FTC released what we call our Consumer Sentinel Network Data Book, reporting on the fraud and identity theft complaints that we received in 2020. And the data book includes both national complaint numbers and then breakdowns by state of the top frauds and types of identity theft. And the national numbers for 2020 are shown on the slide. As you can see there, we received 4.7 million total complaints, and that's a large increase over 2019 when we received 3.2 million complaints. The complaints we received last year reported 3.3 billion in fraud losses. And again, that was a huge increase over 2019 when the reports reported $1.8 billion in losses. And last year in 2020, there was a particularly large increase in identity theft complaints. And this was mainly due to unemployment claims, the fake unemployment claims that I'm sure you've all heard about that were made during the early stages of the pandemic. And that is still a problem in many locations around the country. So one of the data points that we try to collect through Consumer Sentinel is the age of the folks who are reporting fraud to us, to the extent that people are willing to provide that information. And the slide shows some of that data. So our overall data shows that younger people reported losing money to fraud more often than older people. You can see that for folks aged 20 to 29, 44% of those reporting to us reported losing money. Whereas for those aged 70 to 79, it was only 20%. Unfortunately, you can see in the bottom right-hand corner that when people aged 70 plus had a loss, however, the median loss was much higher. It was $635 as opposed to $324 for those who are aged 20 to 29. And for those who are 80 and over, the median loss was $1,300. So there are some particular types of scams that our data shows disproportionately impact older consumers. And those include tech support scams. Jay mentioned those earlier. Prize, sweepstakes, and lottery scams, where you get some sort of notification that you won a sweepstakes or the lottery, and you need to provide money to pay the taxes and fees associated with your winnings. And then the other one is family and friend impersonation scams, or this is more commonly called the grandparent scam, where you get a call from someone impersonating your grandchild who purports to be in trouble and needs you to send them money. So if you can't see this slide, one thing you can do is click on the corner and just expand the slide so you can see the graph. So this basically shows similar information to what I was talking about on the last slide. So the green boxes are the median losses for each age group, and then the yellow line that's descending is the percentage reporting a fraud and the loss. So you can see younger people, greater percentages of younger people report losing money than older folks, but the older folks do lose more. So another type of information that we collect in our Consumer Sentinel reports is the method that was used to pay the scammer. And here's the data on the method of payment. So the number one payment method last year was credit cards. And that's actually the first year, I think, in a while that credit card has been the main method of payment. And part of the reason for that is the large increase in online shopping scams that I'll talk about in just a minute. Typically, the number one payment mechanisms are what I call anonymous payment mechanisms. Fraudsters like to use anonymous payment mechanisms like wire transfers and gift cards or reload cards, because those payment mechanisms enable them to get your money quickly and to remain anonymous while doing so. So for gift cards, for example, we like to tell people gift cards are for gifts. They're not intended to pay for goods or services. So if somebody asks you to purchase gift cards and provide them with the code on the back in order to pay for something, that's definitely a scam. Wire transfers, those are fine with friends and relatives, but not somebody that you don't know. Our advice is only use a wire transfer with somebody that you know, a friend or a relative. The FTC on the enforcement side has actually brought a series of cases which has helped to bring this wire transfer number down a bit, because for years wire transfers was the number one method of payment in our fraud complaints. And we've sued both MoneyGram and Western Union, the two major money transfer companies, alleging that they did not do enough to keep fraudsters from using their systems to obtain money for their victims. So in 2017, we announced a case that we brought jointly with the Department of Justice against Western Union, in which they agreed to pay $586 million in restitution to people who had lost money to frauds perpetrated over their platform. We then followed up the next year with a case against MoneyGram where they paid $125 million, and we're currently in the process of returning those funds to people who were victimized using those systems. So the other payment method I wanted to mention, and this is fourth up from the bottom, is cryptocurrency. So it's not as common as some of the others I've mentioned, but this one is growing. So complaints that we received in Consumer Sentinel where cryptocurrency was the method of payment have tripled over the last year, and that is something that we expect will continue to increase in the future. So the other type of data that we capture is the contact method. So how did the fraudster contact you? And the number one method last year was a phone call, the good old-fashioned phone call. Number two was text message. Three was email. And the solid green line shows the percentage of fraud reports that had that contact method. And then the lighter green line is the percentage of those reports where people reported losing money. So you can see with phone calls that's the most common contact method, but fewer people actually lose money. Whereas something like a website or an app that isn't used as much, but 68% of the people who report that contact method end up losing money. So the one I wanted to highlight here is social media. So it's only at 6% in terms of commonality. A lot of people, 65%, lose money when contacted that, but this one is really, again, on the rise, particularly with older adults. Complaints from older adults where the fraud started on social media more than doubled from 2019 to 2020, and the spike has continued so far this year. So this slide shows the top fraud categories overall for last year, 2020. So imposter scams, which Jay mentioned, was the number one overall category, and that's been the case for the last couple of years. An imposter scam, what's included here, any type of scam where somebody pretends to be someone they're not, like someone affiliated with a government agency or a company like Microsoft that you may know and deal with and trust. And they impersonate these folks in order to build your trust and to get your money. Number two is online shopping, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And again, this is something that really spiked during the pandemic. And then four is prize sweepstakes and lotteries. That's the other one I'll mention, since I said earlier that disproportionately does impact seniors according to our data. So I mentioned earlier that we have both national data, but we also break it down by state. So this slide shows our data for complaints from Minnesota consumers in 2020. So, and we do this by reports per 100,000 people in the state, so that we sort of make an apples to apples comparison between states. So last year for Minnesotans, we received 691 reports, which ranked Minnesota 36th amongst the 50 states. And the total number of fraud complaints that we received were just under 39,000. And those reported $36.8 million in losses. And then at the bottom of the slide shows the prevalence or the top categories of complaints. And identity theft was number one. As I mentioned, huge spike last year in identity theft due to fake unemployment claims. Imposter scams was number two. Online shopping was number three. Prize and sweepstakes number four. So very similar to the national categories. So online shopping scam. So these have really exploded during the pandemic. We saw this early in the pandemic where there were in-demand items like face masks and other PPE. We saw websites just pop up literally overnight, mostly operated offshore, offering these hard-to-find items, and then largely not delivering. So that's continued now with the supply chain issues that we're experiencing that you've heard about that are making things worse. So you need to be really careful shopping online over the holidays, especially for items that may be in high demand but short supply. So things that use computer chips with the chip shortage. Again, in high demand but short supply. So we expect, and we've already seen, scammers just setting up websites offering these materials, these in-demand items at very good prices. It's very easy to set up a fake website that looks legitimate. And the reports that we get are that people provide their credit card information on these sites, but the materials they order never arrive, or if something arrives, it's not what they ordered. And then if you contact them, one, it's often difficult to contact them because there's not contact information on the website. But if you do get a hold of them and request a refund, they're routinely refused. So what can you do to protect yourself? The first thing is check it out first. If it's an unfamiliar website that you've never done business with before, search online for either the company name or the name of the website, plus terms like review, complaint, or scam. That type of search will typically call up results that'll show you what other people's experience with that particular website was. Second, carefully review the terms of sale. So what's the expected delivery date? What's the refund policy? And is there contact information, either an email address or a phone number, where you're able to get a hold of someone if your merchandise doesn't arrive or isn't what you ordered? And then last is pay by credit card, not any of the other payment mechanisms we've talked about today. You will have federal protections to institute a chargeback if you paid by credit card and you were scammed. So another type of scam that we're seeing this holiday season are something I call package phishing scams. So these are when you receive an unexpected text message, often from a company that you know, like UPS or FedEx or even Amazon, about a package or a package delivery. And they want you to click on a link to learn more. And many of these look really convincing. But if you're not expecting a package, you didn't order anything from Amazon, don't click on any links in that type of text message or email. As Jay talked about earlier, clicking on the links could allow malware to be loaded onto your device and put your personal information at risk. If you think the text message or email may really be real, then contact the company directly at a website or phone number that you know to be correct. Don't click on that link. And if it is a phishing text, you can report it to spam, which is 7726 on your phone, and then please report it to the FTC at reportfraud.ftc.gov. So tech support scams. So Jay basically described how these work. So I won't go into that, other than that they do often start with a pop-up or a phone call. But my next slide shows a graph of the complaints that we received about tech support scams over the last several years. And again, this is one where our data shows this definitely disproportionately affects seniors. So these scams were virtually unheard of before 2014. 2014 is the first year we started getting complaints about tech support scams, where we only got 134 complaints. But you can see in 2017, the spike was up to 155,000 complaints. And it's still high, although the number is trending down a little bit. Consumers aged 60 to 79 are most likely to fall victims to tech support scams, and our data shows that consumers aged 60 and older were 5 times more likely to fall victim to tech support scams than younger adults. Another one that is disproportionately impacting older Americans during the pandemic are romance scams. So these are when you may be on a dating site, someone contacts you, wants you to engage in conversation with them off the site, develop your trust, and then eventually find a reason to ask you for money. And the complaints about this have grown since 2016, as shown on the slide. So the pink boxes are the number of reports, and then the graph running through it is the dollar amount lost. There was $304 million in reported losses to romance scams in 2020, and that's the largest loss amount for any single category in our Consumer Sentinel database. The median reported loss was $2,500, which is a huge loss. And then, as I said, for older consumers, 70 and older, the median reported loss is almost $9,500. So quickly, just some tips before I turn it over to Lisa. So wiring money, we already talked about money transfers. It's like sending cash. You only want to use a money transfer through companies like MoneyGram and Western Union with friends and family, someone you know and trust, not somebody that you just met online or talked to over the phone. Same thing with prepaid or reloadable debit cards. Same thing with gift cards. Gift cards are for gifts. Providing that the code on the back of the card is like handing over cash. Giving someone that you don't know and that you haven't verified your bank account or your checking account information, again, is like giving that person access to your money. Somebody calls you pretending to be your bank and wants you to verify your identity by providing your account information. That's a scam. Your bank's never going to ask you to do that. And then as Jay mentioned, never give out passwords or personal information to someone you don't know. So this is our reporting mechanism. So again, I think Lisa mentioned at the outset the importance of reporting when you encounter a fraud, and you can do so to the FTC at report.fraud.ftc.gov. This is a new site that we just launched in the last year, and once you tell us on that site what happened to you, then you'll get customized advice on what you can do to get your money back, and you'll also get consumer information, consumer education information on how to help you avoid frauds in the future. And then I mentioned at the outset that education is a big part of what the FTC does. And this slide shows our consumer education campaign for older adults. It's called Pass It On. You can find all of this information at ftc.gov/passiton. We have materials, presentation materials on the various types of scams that I've talked about today that do disproportionately affect older Americans. And the whole theme of the campaign is that you've got this. Here's information that'll help you handle the sorts of situations we've talked about today. And what we want you to do, as Lisa mentioned earlier, is to pass that information on. Start a conversation with your friends and relatives. Share the information to help protect them as well. And again, all of these materials are available for free in bulk at ftc.gov/bulk order. And that is what I have for you this morning. Again, I thanks so much to the BBB and AARP for inviting us. And now I will turn things over to Lisa from the Better Business Bureau.
Great, thank you, Todd. I appreciate this so much. I learn something new every time. We hear from you, and I wanted to thank the Federal Trade Commission. You mentioned it very briefly at the beginning, but I would like to underscore again that FTC was able to return $403 million to fraud victims in your fiscal year 21. And I just think that's incredible. That's extremely difficult to do. So thanks again for all of that great information. So BBB wants to hit on some additional topics that are scam related for all of us to contemplate as we finish out 2021 and head into the new year. There. I will underscore again the who is at risk piece, and it really is actually everyone. Anyone of any age, educational level, economic level can be susceptible to scams. Oftentimes when I'm out in the community talking with people, I get somebody who tells me, invariably, someone will come up and say, I can always spot a scam. I can tell people are so dumb or whatever. And the truth is, things really have changed over the years. Scams are very sophisticated now. We need to help each other and stay up on the tactics and the red flags. A quick note about BBB Scam Tracker for all of you who like data and trends. I know both Jay and Todd talked about their data as well, but BBB has a really cool one called Scam Tracker. And it's something you can just jump right on and use today if you wanted to. It's like a heat map where you can see where the scams are occurring and who's reporting what type of scam all over North America. And you can zoom right in on your hometown. You can check on a relative in North Carolina and see what's happening in their area. So I encourage you to check that out. It is really important to report, as Todd just mentioned. I'm going to hit a couple of quick notes from our data that we found from the Scam Tracker because we do a big report each year on what we find. And we have a lot of similarities between what FTC and AARP are finding as well. But that just goes to show that I think we've got some really great information that is helpful to consumers when we do see that consistency. Younger people for us did fall victim more often, and older people for us on Scam Tracker lost more money per the scams in this last year. This year was actually especially interesting, though, to us at BBB, because for the first time we saw a really big increase in the amount of money that the youngest age bracket was losing. We think it's because of the sharp increase in online shopping that occurred during the COVID era. For us, the number of scam reports was up almost 25%, and the median loss was $115. But of course, we saw scams for thousands and thousands and thousands of dollar loss. And I will just mention briefly, there's so many things we could talk about, and I won't go into all of these details on our charts. But I did want to mention one thing about romance scams that has just hit the market that we're hearing about. And romance scams are an imposter scam where someone pretends that they are someone they're not to get you close to them and to put down your guard. And eventually they will start asking for money, and they'll have a story that goes along with it. For those of you who have heard of this, you might not have heard of this particular spin on it, but we know that women in the West Metro of Minnesota right now are getting phone calls and emails using this romance scam tactic, saying that they are stuck on an oil rig. And so I wanted to let you know that. So if you're talking to your family and friends who have a new relationship that they want to tell you about, but they haven't met, they haven't seen the person in person yet, and et cetera, because they're out on an oil rig, please talk to them about that. This is one that is kind of running rampant in the metro right now. Todd really did a good job of covering red flags for online purchase scams, but I mention it now too because 'tis the season to be shopping, and a lot of us are shopping online. So you can see these quick, hot points on here. When you see something at an unbelievably great price, it is too good to be true. And make sure that you know who you're doing business with. It is so easy to see something cute pop up on your social media as a potential gift that might seem perfect for somebody that you know. We really advise against clicking and going through that type of portal to a business. Come out of your social media, look up the business first at BBB or online. You could even Google the company name and then the word scam after it, and just to see what other consumers are saying about the company. To be more safe, we want to keep you and your loved ones with your money. A few tactics commonly used by scammers. Rushing or pressuring you. That is huge. It is completely designed on purpose to keep you from having clarity and for asking anyone else for advice or to keep you from researching. Playing on your emotions. That could be fear, but it could also be excitement. Todd mentioned sweepstakes and lottery scams. It gets you happy and excited, but that also, there's been studies that show that there's a psychological connection where you lose some clarity of knowing if something is real or not and taking the appropriate precautions. Reciprocity, I'll kind of skip ahead to that one. That one is if somebody does a very little, maybe, but nice favor for you, and then human nature is you feel compelled to return the favor. That might be somebody saying, hey, I've got this hot, investment tip that's just for you. Or here, I'm going to give you these free gifts, and now won't you do this for me? Or here's a free lunch. These type of things are designed to provoke a nice, normal, law-abiding person to maybe take an action that they wouldn't normally if they had time to think about it. So I want you to think about those type of tactics because the scams change, but those tactics tend to resurface. Top impersonated organizations. This again is something that we have found through our scam tracker research. Social Security Administration was top again for us this year, and Amazon went way up to number 2. And again, that's probably because of more people online shopping, but you can see some other familiar names on this list: Publishers Clearinghouse, Apple, Microsoft, PayPal, Medicare, Walmart, energy companies, and those claiming cash advances. So these are things to absolutely look for when they come in your emails or on your telephone caller ID. These are the top impersonated organizations. And a few life hacks overall to protect your money going into 2022. We want to have a healthy personal economy and a great year ahead for all of us. And the last thing we want is to lose money to scam artists. A couple of important reminders. Go ahead and register your phone number with the Do Not Call registry, because remember, the good businesses will abide by those rules. So anyone else who's coming through and still calling you, that's a very good filter for you to know that that's not a legitimate organization. We do want you to report scams. It can be to BBB, FTC, or AARP, whatever is your desire and is easiest for you, because we do all collaborate. Trusting your instincts is actually a big one. It might sound a little fluffy, but there's a reason why we have gut feelings. And if something doesn't feel right to you, you always are in control. You are under no obligation to be nice to anyone. They're not being nice to you when they're trying to steal your money. If something doesn't feel right, it probably is. And you can always, always stop and check first. And, I also do your homework and verify the information. Again, that just goes back to not making a quick decision, to go back and check on the legitimacy of a company or organization or a person before you do business with them. Sometimes, there are individual to individual transactions as well. They're not always a person to company transaction where you could lose your money. So keeping up with the theme, talk to others, share what you've learned. be empowered when you know more and you're reminded of these types of scams and the tactics and the approaches. You are better off, and we want you to share again with one other person. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Jay and Todd too, and we have a few minutes to take some questions from the everyone participating today. So thanks again.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa and Todd. Excellent information. I learn something new every time that we meet and do these presentations. And it really goes to show that it is a network. We're all working together. And that goes for all of you out there who are participating today. We all work together and we keep each other safe from scams in the holidays as we get together with our families as a great opportunity just to talk about these issues. So we do have some questions. And first for Todd, Erica has asked, she noted when you were commenting about credit card payments and you were saying always pay with a credit card because you'll have federal protections. Does the same apply to debit cards?
Great. That's a great question. And the answer is no. That's why we encourage folks to pay by credit card. You can charge back for fraud with your credit card. You don't always have the same protections with the debit card.
Very good. Thank you.
Hey, Jay, could I add something to that? This visual has always helped me. Let's say here's you. Then there's the scammer. With the credit card in between, it's a whole nother entity of protection because you can dispute charges with your credit card company. The Fair Billing Credit Act is a protection for you. But if it's you and your debit card, that's just you and your checking account. There's no other entity in there. That's a direct trail from you and to the scammer. So to me, that is a good visual about why a credit card has more protection.
Very good. Very good. So Lisa, Arliss kind of made a general observation, but she wants to know what's the deal with how sometimes you get these scam phone calls and they have a local phone number, maybe even a specific phone number for a local business. How does that work?
Mm-hmm. We hate those. Everyone hates those. It's driving us nuts. It's called spoofing. They're fake numbers. The scammers have designed it that way. It's all like coming from a computer generated system. Super easy for them. They make it seem like it's a local number because they know you're more likely to pick it up. There is no rule that you ever have to pick up your phone. So BBB advocates that you let literally everything go to your voicemail. You listen to it. Decide if it's anything that you want to handle or talk to or call back, and then call back. Most scammers aren't really leaving messages because there's all these things with their software. They want to get a live person on the phone. And again, it buys you a little time to look into it. So yeah, it's a big fake thing, unfortunately.
Great. Thanks for that advice.
Can I add one thing to that, Jay?
Yep.
Yeah, so one thing that the phone companies are working together on is trying to make caller ID meaningful again, because caller ID is often not meaningful. The numbers can be spoofed so easily. So you may notice on your phone that you're getting the message scam likely or something to that effect. And that's because the phone companies behind the scenes are trying to verify that the number that's been transmitted with the caller ID actually is coming from the caller. And if they can't verify it, that's why you're getting that scam likely message. So my advice is if you get that scam likely message, do not pick up the phone because that's a pretty good indication that it's some sort of scam telemarketing call.
Very good. Yes, we've been working on that progress with how the telecoms companies notify and utilize the caller ID. So that's fantastic. Todd, what about PayPal? How is that protected or not?
PayPal I think is fine for buying online. And there are fraud protections with PayPal, so PayPal or credit card, I think, are fine.
Very good. So with that, we're just about at the end of our hour here, and want to thank everyone for participating. I'll give each of you just a final word. So Lisa, why don't you start?
Mm-hmm. Thanks, everybody. I just want to say again that with the holiday season upon us, you have an opportunity to do more visiting with friends and family. And it's very easy, actually, to bring up something like this. You know, it's not awkward, really, to start a scam conversation. You can just say, oh, no, I got another robocall or something like that as your opener. And then you can slide right into, hey, guess what I learned? So go ahead and use that tactic when you're talking to your loved ones this month.
Very good. Todd?
That is actually great advice. So I'll second Lisa's advice. The other thing I would say is if you encounter something yourself that just doesn't seem right and somebody wants you to act quickly, make a decision quickly, just slow down. You don't have to act quickly. If it doesn't seem right, talk to somebody before you act. Frequently just talking it through, hey, you know, I encountered so-and-so and they want me to do this. Saying it out loud will help you realize, okay, that's really not right. It sounds like a scam.
Very good. And I'll just say, let's all be fraud fighters this holiday season and into 2022. You can help protect your loved ones by having these conversations and sharing what you learned. So everyone, have a fantastic day. Thanks for joining us.